Hi everyone, this is Apollo, and if you're new here, then I'm an art commentator who discusses things like art, animation, fandom behaviours, media tropes, pop culture, and a variety of other art and media focused topics. And today is a little bit different than my usual videos, where I just wanted to take a minute and ruminate on a few things that have happened the past year. I've had quite a lot to think about this year and have subsequently made a fair few plans for what I'm going to do moving forward, and I just wanted to kind of share that with you. The good news is that we made it through 2024. Just about. I don't know about anyone else, but this was a rough one. A lot of major things happened in the world and in other people's own worlds, I'm assuming. In terms of just like my life alone, I moved house, my partner got major surgery, I went to VidCon, I got a cat, I switched jobs. Just a whole bunch of things were contained within this year that made it feel like it stretched on forever. In a single year, I've aged 100. It's been a strange one. A lot of quite frankly massive events have taken precedent, whether they be on a global stage or a personal one. I think I speak for many when I say that it feels like a lot of us have just been hit by pretty much everything at full throttle, non-stop, without a break. It can be very easy to be swept up in it and feel like you're just being bulldozed by wave after wave without a chance to pause and really take in the good as well as the bad, because the bad has been bad, and it's a lot. It's especially felt like a funny year for the channel specifically, as I've been adjusting to new lifestyle changes while trying to keep things ticking over here as a means of helping me keep afloat for the time. So now that we're approaching 2025 and things are finally slowing down and feeling a bit more stable, I just wanted to take today as a chance to have a wind down from this roller coaster of a year, take a look back at some highs, some lows, and map out what my plans are for next year. I have a lot of thoughts on things that took place. My mental headspace has been up and down, and that's definitely affected what I've been putting out, but what that has also done is make me properly reflect on what it is I actually like doing here on YouTube and what would make me want to continue. Because I don't want to be making content for the sake of making content. That's a miserable existence. If I want to work for the sake of working, I would just go to work, you know? So yeah, that's the plan for today, and this is also a time to invite you guys to provide any thoughts, suggestions, and feedback in the comments if you've been here for a while as to how you think the year has gone, how you think the channel has performed, and what you'd like to see more of next year. Even despite having a few things planned, it's always nice to see if there's something you guys mentioned that I haven't thought about. Oh, and before I forget, I do also have a fun little raffle idea for you all to take part in for the remainder of December, with a chance to win a custom-drawn looping animation, which will also be used as the first speed paint of next year. If you're interested, then please keep listening until the end for instructions on how to participate. So, if you're interested in listening to me ramble, then please keep watching. Let's begin. Let's start off with the expectations that were set out for the channel thanks to the previous year, 2023. To put it bluntly, the channel grew enormously last year, more than I ever expected, and because of that, while I didn't expect to do nearly as well this time around, I think there was definitely an invisible benchmark put in place somewhat, and when that happens, it can be pretty easy to let your thoughts run away with you and foster the idea that you can keep that momentum going. But what actually happens is that when you do hit a major high, 9 times out of 10 you will experience a major low immediately afterwards before things level out, hopefully. And I think 2024 was my drop-off year. In hindsight, I kind of wish I hadn't got so caught up in the numbers, because that's one thing I often preach about, and it can also be pretty demoralizing when you aren't able to do as well as you think you're capable of doing. This also does appear to be a trend with my channel specifically, where I start the year off really strong, videos will do very well, I'll be on a roll, but then towards the end of the year, particularly when the weather turns and I'm running out of steam and finding it a bit more difficult to keep motivated, my videos do tend to drop off. But you know, a lowball video from time to time is kind of to be expected in this field, and it's honestly not like this year was terrible in terms of performance. I had some very well performing videos out this year, but as things kind of went on and more big life changes rolled in, I tend to have this habit of scrambling for topics to cover more so as a distraction when things in real life become a bit difficult to approach, as opposed to discussing something I'm majorly passionate about, which can definitely impact the performance of them. And while I can recognize that this has happened, that's not exactly a guarantee that I won't ever let it happen again, and that's often the case with a lot of other people too. It's just the nature of doing things online. Sometimes you do really well, and sometimes you just kind of lose your way a bit. It happens. And if it's happened to you, try not to let it get you down. Feel your feelings for a little while, then get back out there and try again. And
I find that's the best way to go about it a lot of the time. I was hoping to hit 50k finally this year, but I guess that just isn't meant to be right now, and that's fine. Because even though my enthusiasm for a few topics was hit or miss, I still got to put out so many cool things that meant a lot to me. For one thing, and this really did feel like a big achievement, I got to release the first Mint and Friends intro short. Was it a little rough around the edges? Absolutely. But I've said this a few times, I'm one of those people who kind of has to dive in halfway through, otherwise I get cold feet, I worry about things not being perfect, and then I talk myself out of doing it altogether. So I'm happy that it went out. My aim for the series isn't nearly as grandiose as many of the indie projects I've spoken about previously, since I mostly just want to indulge in some 1-minute animations to give people a feel for who these characters are that keep appearing in my speed paints, and if we're able to expand on that sometime in the future after building a bit of recognition, that'll be a nice bonus. But it was still an eye-opening experience nonetheless in terms of just how much work goes into coordinating things like voice actors and setting time aside to actually animate, because I haven't had a chance to do that in quite some time. Even still, this was a really good chance to understand other parts of the process that I wasn't made privy to before. For starters, I put out a casting call which received about 200-ish audition emails if I remember correctly, and there were a lot of amazing voice talents who put themselves forward for each of the 6 characters I'm currently focusing on. Thank you again to everyone who took part in that. I know there is an issue with casting calls just kind of ghosting people if they don't get the part, so I did my best to send out responses and also tried to word them in a way that made sure they didn't discourage people either. Putting yourself out there is terrifying, so if you took the leap to even send out an email just inquiring, then give yourself a pat on the back. It was a really big thing to do that. So that was back in April, and afterwards it was a matter of sending out scripts, making a solid effort on animating, and getting everything wrapped up. Because it's just me and I can only really afford to pay the voice actors at the moment, it likely won't surprise you all that it took 6 months to create a single 1-minute short. This was also in between me working full-time and trying to push out long-form videos to maintain a bit of revenue on the YouTube side of things as well. Even though it was tough, it made me remember just how much I enjoy animating, and any fans of the Mint and Friends crew will be happy to hear that I'm trying to work on the next 2 simultaneously to be released next year. It'll be tough, but hey, I think we can do it. It got me thinking a lot about how much I can realistically achieve with these shorts in a certain time frame, and to be perfectly honest with you, I am now thinking that maybe trying to make them fully animated was slightly ambitious, but I'm kind of divided on whether to dial back and go for a more animatic style for future shorts, or carry on fully animating since that's how we approached Mints. But we can also go the route of maybe treating that as like a proof of concept, maybe? What do you guys think? I'd actually really appreciate some suggestions on this. But that aside, while things did take a bit of a backseat thanks again to life events such as switching jobs and mental health breaks and all of that, I'm really proud of being able to stick it out, and I'm really excited to show you guys more of what's going on in the world of Mint and Friends next year. In addition to this, I also went to VidCon for the second time, but I will be taking a break from it next year in 2025 to recuperate, because while California is wonderful and I miss both the location and my fellow YouTube buddies and associates, it is also painfully expensive to visit. The first time I managed to go, I decided to go into YouTube Hustle Overdrive and see how much I could make revenue-wise in order to pay for it, and guess what? I made more than enough to do so, and it was great. Unfortunately, that kind of also played into that whole benchmark thing I mentioned before, because while I did manage to make some money this year, it was probably around half the amount compared to last time, which made things a bit tighter. That said though, it was a fantastic experience. I missed the sunshine a lot, I missed the beach. I also have a very prominent tan line from where I got burnt, but you know what? It was worth it. That was probably the most sun I have seen all year. I haven't seen the sun in 3 weeks. But more than anything, I missed hanging out with the other art girls and other commentary peeps. I may not be the most outspoken or energetic or amusing of the group, but the best part about being with them is that I didn't feel like I had to be. And it was nice to just kick back, see everyone doing their own thing, and just enjoy a bit of vacation. The first year, it was obvious we were still a bit unsure. First impressions were still on everyone's minds and such. But now that we're more familiar, it didn't feel like we were as nervous around each other, which really helped. As an aside on that though, because I know there is some conversation involving the ArtCC currently, and I have already received some questions about this by nature of who I hung out with. I was in the vicinity for what was going on with a certain animatronic individual during the convention, but I'm not going to speak on it any more than what is said here, because I wasn't personally affected by it, and thus it isn't really my place to give any kind of inside tea, so to speak. And it's also not the main focus of the current drama that he's found himself in, which should really be the thing that takes precedent. So I'd appreciate if people didn't ask me many more questions about this afterwards. To put it simply, I'm pretty disappointed in a lot of people as to how things surrounding him were handled, because what happened at VidCon, as well as the current situation going down, wouldn't have gotten to that point if people had just put their foot down and stomped out certain encroaching behaviours. People should not have excused or been silent on things he was saying to others, even if it didn't affect them directly, because the lack of pushback is likely what made him feel emboldened to try his luck with the kinds of things he said online or the actions he took offline. Why people ever thought being like, oh, he's just like that, is a valid excuse to not put strict boundaries in place and discourage that behaviour is beyond me. But hey, what's done is done. That's all I'm going to say on this, because there are plenty of videos and streams still coming out about the drama that I mentioned, which should be the thing that people are focusing on. Regardless, despite all of that, VidCon was very enjoyable, and we did a lot of other stuff outside of the convention, so it didn't really sour the experience for too many people all that much. But next year, me and my partner have our own travel plans, and so we'll be taking a break from any YouTube-related jaunts, because Lord, I might have a better job now, but my purse still needs a bit of recovery time. So yeah, all in all, some ups and downs in terms of performance, but at the very least, I can say that I've hit some milestones that I'm proud of, and I still got to do some really fun stuff. And while it's been nice to look back, why don't we have a look at what's in store for the future? Okay, so now for what we have planned when it comes to next year. For the first quarter of the year at least, I'll still be creating long-form videos twice a month due to a potential sponsorship deal, and depending on whether that goes ahead, and also to try and get the algorithm back on my side after the holidays. I do have some topics lined up that I'm excited for, but may have a slightly more relaxed schedule. It honestly depends on how many scripts I can put together in advance. That said, I am also hoping for the speed paints used to mostly consist of work done for the Mint and Friends shorts production in order to push that along. As well as that, I think I really want to get back into the quick little sketch videos like what I used to do over on TikTok, because those were a lot of fun and also a good way to give a bit more context surrounding the characters' personalities. I actually really enjoyed making those and only stopped because I had so much else going on, so it would be really nice to get the chance to set some time aside and make some again. I also want to be able to use this as an opportunity to put some more promo material together and potentially give the voice actors some more work in between shorts as well. We did a test drive of this in my last video where I brought on Bubblegum and Cherry's VAs Eddie and Dante to help out with a sponsorship, which is another thing that made me kind of sad because that particular video didn't do great, but making it was so much fun. They both did a really great job with their lines. I got to build a bit of character interaction between the two, and it got some creative ideas flowing for other stuff we could try out. So I guess even though I wish I could have gone to them and been like, oh my god, the thing we all worked on together was a giant success, it was still nice to at least get that bit of enjoyment out of making something together, and I hope that was the same for them too. Something else that I miss from last year that I didn't do so much this time is that I really like bringing people aboard and talking with them about what they think about certain topics. Whether it's the other art girls or indie creators or even just people who watch my stuff and want to give their own thoughts, I think I'd really like to look into doing that more so again. I think what happened with that was at the tail end of 2023, I did a video about the Art CC and gathered people's thoughts on it and also asked some people to help with reading out the statements given in text. But because I was making it the very same week I moved into my new place, which at the time, working on videos religiously was my way of coping with stress, there ended up being some miscommunication. The wrong statements were spoken and put in place for the wrong person, and I just didn't even fucking notice when editing because I was running on 2 hours of sleep a night. So yeah, I got really embarrassed about that because it felt like a massive fuck up in terms of misrepresenting people, and really dialed back on asking other creators in particular to take part in discussions, as I then also developed a bit of fear of taking advantage. I also just eventually took that video down because it didn't feel like my best work anyway. But yeah, I've had a few little promotion ideas suggested and would really like to see what we can do, but that of course will depend on things such as availability of the VAs, since a few of them have other multiple roles going on, as well as time, budget, etc. Besides that though, I also have some exciting travel plans involving a couple of stories I have going on currently. With regards to Mint and Friends, me and my partner are actually taking a separate trip to Amsterdam next year, which is the city I based some of the aesthetics of the setting off of. It's a place with a lot of bright and interestingly designed buildings, and fun fact, the Netherlands was also one of the first countries in the world to legalize gay marriage, so I'll be using the trip to take a couple of pictures, soak in a bit of non-UK culture, and help flesh out some of the world building. But also, most of all, actually spend time with my partner. The other story is actually one I don't think I've spoken about too much publicly yet, but basically, a few years ago, I illustrated a couple of books for a self-published author, and it made me really curious about wanting to look into that process myself. It'll be a long-haul project, and likely one that goes on for quite a while yet, but I've had an idea for some time about a story that draws upon fairy tales combined with Scottish myth, and it also currently draws influence from stories such as Red Riding Hood, Beauty and the Beast, and Wolfwalkers. I'm actually really excited for it, and to help with the research portion, expenses permitting, I'm planning on doing a research trip to Scotland with the aim of visiting one of the smaller islands. And for the moment, we're actually thinking of going full-on adventuring to the north and visiting the Shetland Islands, which is the northernmost point of the UK. To give you an idea of how far north that is, it's pretty much almost halfway to Norway. And the islands themselves probably have more in common with Scandinavia. However, Shetland in particular is where the particular myth I'm thinking of originates, hence the interest in visiting. I don't know, have you ever just had the urge to run away to a remote place that's kind of detached? I know, kitty cat, I'll let you in a second. I don't know, have you ever had the urge to run away to a remote place that's kind of detached from the hustle and bustle and where it feels like time slows down and magic just might be a little easier to believe in? I know I already live on an island and everything, but England is still pretty damn metropolitan, and it's been low-key a fantasy of mine to settle down, or at the very least, run away temporarily to a sleepy village either close to the sea or somewhere similar where it just feels easier to catch your breath. Obviously, I understand that all of that is very idealistic and romanticized to the max, but that's also what makes me want to do this, and it's the same with Mint and Friends. I want to find things to romanticize and also create works revolving around things I both enjoy and feel strongly about, to the point where, you can afford to be a little idealistic about it. For Mint and Friends, it's the exploration of queer identities combined with pursuing one's passions, while with this project, it's the mystery, the whimsy, and occasional underlying danger that can be found within fairy tales. So yeah, quite a few exciting plans in place already. Whether or not they'll all happen or not still remains to be seen, but one thing is for sure, 2024 feels like a transitional year, and if nothing else, it made me think more critically about how things are at the moment. It kind of grounded, maybe also somewhat humbled me into putting down some solid foundations for bigger and more ambitious moves too, and I sincerely hope you guys join me for the ride. Overall, during this year more than most, I think, I used YouTube as a way to feel in control of things when real life began to feel uncertain, and as a result, I think I got muddled as to why I started doing all this in the first place. I want to try building a healthier relationship with creating stuff online, and this year I did tentatively start taking the steps to do that, because desperation ain't a good look, and I want to enjoy things again, so, that's what I want to try and do. Putting out videos makes me genuinely happy, it makes me feel smart, it makes me feel capable, and it makes me feel like I have something to contribute even with something as niche as a discussion on an art trope or fandom behaviour, but constantly fretting about what topics are trending or whether this month's total revenue will be enough to pay off certain expenses did not help things and made me feel pretty inadequate. So I'm going back to the drawing board and focusing on things I actually want to make, not just what I think subscribers want to see from me. In terms of long-form content, there are a fair few topics I want to look into that have been on the back burner for a few years at this point, so I think now's the time to revisit them and see what I can do without worrying too much as to whether they'll perform all that well. I'll be keeping to the 2 videos a month format for the most part where I can, though I'm going to try to be more lenient when needed instead of freaking out about schedules or consistency or whatever. Lastly, I want to thank you all so much for sticking with me, even through this weird year. Please know that I have appreciated every comment, even as it became difficult to keep up with them, every message sent in earnest, even when I felt too overwhelmed to respond. I'm an introverted mess most of the time, but seeing the support I receive just for daring to do something I enjoy makes it all more bearable to keep striving to improve. And I really hope that helps to motivate some of you as well, because I've seen some of the stuff like a few of you guys have been doing, and it is brilliant, and I want you to keep going. On a lighter note, as a final hurrah for the year, I'll be hosting a little end-of-year raffle to celebrate getting out of it alive, and the prize will be one looped animation that will also be used as the first speed paint of 2025. All you have to do to enter is create a meme about Mint and Friends. Whichever character you think is your favourite, what kind of shenanigans you think one of them would get up to, go nuts. Just keep it safe for work. 1 meme per person will be entered, and you can submit by tagging me on any of my social media, be it Tumblr, Bluesky, follow me on Bluesky by the way, I've pretty much abandoned Twitter at this point, or Instagram. The winner will be announced on the 28th of December. I look forward to seeing your submission. And for the final time this year, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you as always to my wonderful patrons who support me and keep my motivation up by being absolutely lovely people. Thank you to my YouTube peeps, Jesse Sparks, Manuel Legzon Gonzalez, Ash Valentine, Lauren R., Mystic Mind, and Pedantic Cat. And an extra special thank you to my indie production supporters Morgan LaFay DeThin, Matty A, Kiyoshi, Roundcat, and Inside Chaos. If you'd like to become a patron, a link to my page will be down below. Stay safe, everyone, and I will speak to you all in 2025. Bye!